Is there a title on the list this week that can challenge Sword Art Online Progressive? Well, it's probably a spoiler, but not really. Hello everybody and welcome to the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. This week for May 14th to the 20th of 2018. 5 new titles on the list this week, but not a whole lot of change up near the top. So let's just get right into it. At number 10 with 5,750 copies sold, Tensei Kenja no Isekai Life. This is a brand new series, and so I'm relying on a somewhat sketchy Google translation. The story of the strongest wise man. Yuji Sano, working at a company, is carrying home work as per usual. Suddenly, his PC displayed an unfamiliar window. You were summoned to a different world. And the next time Yuji woke up, he was in a different world with status and skills. The occupation he got in this different world seemed like an unfair job. Tamer. It was even hard to become an adventurer. But Yuji had a talent as an overwhelming wizard aside from the power of Tamer. Yuji reads all of the books that no one could read in the world with a slime who he made friends with. In this way, Yuji became the world's strongest wizard, but was unaware of just how powerful he was, and then eventually gained the second profession of wise man. Yuji, who has acquired overwhelming skills, becomes an adventurer without fully recognizing his strength. While destroying common sense, he will build up in a different world. So, yeah, it's an isekai. I mean, and an OP main character isekai. Although I kind of like the fact that he has a little slime pal. That seems, I don't know. Every series needs a mascot, so I guess the slime is going to be his. Anyway, it sounds like a pretty straight-ahead isekai, and because it's a brand new series, there's really not much information out there on it. So, well, that's at number 10. At number 9, with 6,632 copies sold, a title that's been on the list for a good number of weeks, Meitantei Conan, Zero no Shikkounin. Detective Conan, Zero the Enforcer, the novelization of the 22nd Detective Conan film. I've been talking about this one for weeks. Let's just move on. Well, I'll tell you, the manga's available. It's based on a manga. Obviously, the manga's the origin material, and we do have the manga and the anime available in English, although it seems like the earlier episodes, the license has run out, so right now you can catch later episodes on Crunchyroll, but I'm not too sure what the whole status is going to be about the earlier episodes at this point. At number 8, with 7,412 copies sold, Volume 6 of Yowa-Chara Tomozaki-kun. This is also known as the lower tier character, Tomozaki-kun. There is no English license for this series. Life is a bad video game. This cliche phrase is, sadly, a reality. However, life doesn't have simple, easy rules. What it does have is irrationality and inequality. The strong say that they have a lot of freedom, but the weak have no choice but to live an overwhelmingly disadvantaged lifestyle. Therefore, it's a bad game. There's no mistake because I, the best gamer in Japan, declare it. However, some person who is on the same level as me goes around saying life is a great game. The school's perfect, strong-willed heroine, Hinami Aoi. Furthermore, she says, I'll teach you the rules of life's game. Normally, I wouldn't believe in those words. However, Hinami Aoi isn't a character that doesn't even fit in a normal frame at all. So, of course, this one, we've talked about this one before, actually. The Volume 5 was on this list a couple of months ago. And and my feeling on it is the same as the feeling then is that I think this would be a cool series. I think that is sort of a real slice of life genre that we don't have really at all, which is kind of that plugging into that gamer culture, and even in the case of this novel, taking a look at it from how do you apply gamer culture just to living life. I'd be really interested to see this series and check it out and just see kind of how it makes those parallels. It could be a lot of fun. At number 7, with 7,957 copies sold, volume number 10, and this is kind of funny, of Gamers. So yeah, we have basically the two slice of life titles that focus very heavily on gamers back to back on the top 10. This one, we have no official English language license for it. There was a 12 episode anime which aired July to September of 2017, which streamed on Crunchyroll and covered about the first 5 volumes of the series. This is a story that revolves around certain students and one hobby. Amano Keita is our lonely protagonist who has a passion for gaming and is friends with Uehara Tasuku, who is secretly a fellow gamer and is someone who believes his life is perfect. We also have Karentendo, the club president of the video games club, and Chiaki Hoshinomori, who constantly bickers with Keita. This is a story filled with a non-stop sequence of comedy scenes and misunderstandings. Our chaotic romantic comedy now begins. So this one, of course, focusing on the lives of gamers. I watched a little bit of the anime, not a lot of it, because, again, I try to avoid anime based on light novels in the hope that at some point I might be able to read some of it. But it struck me very much that the whole gamer aspect of it was just to use to unify the characters and to give them something to relate to one another through. It doesn't quite sound like the previous title where we have gaming, life being viewed through the lens of a gamer. Nonetheless, though, I'm always open to more slice of life titles, so yeah, I'd like to see this one get licensed. At number 6, with 8,104 copies sold, Volume 4 of 86. Now, of course, this one was on the list last week at number 2, and it is a alt-world sort of military type story. Actually, really interesting, Frog-kun on Twitter has been reading the first volume and has tweeted out a bit of information about her impressions of the book so far. And it sounds a little bit different than what I kind of expected. Like, the setup of the whole thing is that we have two warring empires, and the one is using unmanned robots, drones, and then the other is publicly saying that they're using the same technology, but the reality is that they are using soldiers to pilot those robots to go into battle. And apparently it's a very unabashedly mecha-heavy series, but what's kind of interesting is that the country that you would think you'd be rooting for, or at least the characters that you want to root for, the 86ers who are the ones fighting their thankless battle in these robots, it sounds actually like what these are individuals that this republic has basically considered lesser individuals, and that is why that they are fighting on this front line, and why basically the government disavows knowledge of their existence. It's actually like fascism and racism that has decided that these individuals will fight. A very different take than what I thought this book was. I wasn't too sure. I guess I wasn't too sure what the spin of the whole thing was. Whether they were tragic heroes or whatever, but it really does seem like they're just like people that have been forced into a horrible circumstance by horrible ideology. So I'm even a little bit more interested now to give this one a read. Fingers crossed that maybe this year we'll hear of a licensed. I'd say, like even Frog-kun said, it's almost inevitable this is going to get an anime. It was number 2 on Kono Light Novel ga Sugoi. It's doing very well in sales. I mean, every time a new volume comes out since I've been doing this list, it's in the top 10, at least for a couple weeks. So it's clear that it's a popular series and that it's doing well. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see an anime of this. And given that, I wouldn't be surprised if we do eventually see this licensed. I'd really like that because, again, I'm very much about trying to get more genres, to broaden the genres that we have available in English. And we really don't have a lot that's sort of like a alt history war. Probably Saga of Tanya the Evil is the closest, but even that has like an isekai element to it that this one doesn't. So it would be kind of interesting, I think, to get a series that was, got rid of the whole isekai or reincarnation elements and strictly was about people in this world dealing with the situation and conditions of that world. So fingers crossed. At number 5, with 8,303 copies sold, Volume 15 of Saijaku Muhai no Bahamut, aka Undefeated Bahamut Chronicle. This one, no English license. However, there was a 12-episode anime which aired January to March of 2016, was licensed in North America by Sentai Filmworks, and streamed on Hulu at the time. Lux, who was a prince from the empire that was destroyed 5 years ago due to the revolt, met with the princess of the new kingdom, Lishart, by accidentally breaking into the bathroom of the girls' dormitory. "How long are you planning to stare at my body, you fool?" The ancient weapons found from the ruins, the drag ride. Lux, who was called the strongest drag knight in the past, was now known as the weakest undefeated, a drag knight who doesn't attack at all. After the duel that started by the challenge from Lishart, Lux ended up entering the girls' school that raised drag knights. Lux's story, where he is surrounded by the noble girls from the academy, is about to unfold. The ultimate academy fantasy battle where the right and the might cross paths now begins. So, this one, and maybe it's just because I'm currently reading volume number 1, but wow, it sounds a lot like Infinite Stratos. About the only thing that I don't know anything really about this series. I haven't watched the anime, and of course it's not available in English. But the only thing about this series that kind of makes me think that maybe it could stand apart is the fact that the main male character has basically an already built-in conflict with the people in this school. Like, he's sort of an outcast and has been thrown out and overturned and everything else. So I mean, maybe, I don't really know. Or maybe it's just like Infinite Stratos and it's just another clueless male character who all the girls end up falling in love with, and he makes no decisions on any of them. I don't know. If you're familiar with the series, feel free to sound out in the comments down below. At number 4, with 8,862 copies sold, Volume 13 of Overlord. Yes, well, I've talked about this for a couple of weeks. It really is. It's one of my favorite series. I really like this series. It's very well written. The use of an anti-hero type character who borders almost on villainy character is really interesting and so different from so many other books that we have, and it's just a really great series. I really, really find myself completely enamored with it, and there's a ton of interesting side characters who have been given just enough time to not take away from the main character, but certainly lots of time to make them interesting and compelling, that the series really can stand on its own 2 feet, regardless of whether it's the main character or these side characters that are kind of in the focus. So it's yeah, I've blubbered on about this lots. You can watch my reviews. Volume 7 of this one just released in English, actually, this past week. I will, of course, be reading it and reviewing it at some point. So, of course, we do have this available from Yen On, and they are also under their Yen Press banner putting out the manga, and we'll have a brand new 3rd season of the anime coming out in July. So that'll be kind of interesting. Now, the one in July, obviously, is going to pick up at volume number 7, so it's going to cover ahead of what we have in terms of the books. So if you've been kind of staying back and keeping up with the books and then watching the anime, Probably leave the third season. I don't know how many volumes it'll cover. So far they've covered 3 for each season, so if they keep up with that, then it'll cover up to volume 9, but I'm not aware of where any arcs end beyond volume 6, so I don't know if volume 9 is actually a good end point or not. Leave your opinions about it down in the comments down below if you've read ahead. I know a lot of you have kept up with like fan translations and everything else of Overlord. I know there's lots of Overlord fans out there. So yeah, where do you think the third season is going to end? No spoilers, please, because I love the series and I want to read ahead and not be spoiled. But yeah, I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are, where you think a good break is going to be that they might cover up to with that third season. At number 3, with 9,217 copies sold, Volume 3 of Tensei Kizoku no Isekai Boukenroku, aka Wonderful Adventure in Another World. God, that's going too far, he said. Now this is all based on Google Translation, because even though there's 3 volumes, and even though it's sold well enough to hit number 3 on the top 10 in its week of release, there's really nothing out there. However, this one apparently was an award winner during the 5th Net Novel Awards. So that's how it got picked up. Obviously, it was a web novel ahead of time. Kazuya Shina, who died protecting a childhood friend's sister, was reborn into a sword and sorcery world as a noble's 3rd son, Kane von Silford. In this world, baptized at the age of 5, there is a custom to receive the protection of the gods, and on the day when Kane's 5th birthday was celebrated, he was also baptized. But what was given was a status beyond the god standards. It fell to Kane to strive to hide this power. The little bitter boy who aims to become adventurer begins. He grows while the gods who do not know their weight, and the upper kingdom and women all trying to sway him. The royal road in another world fantasy opening. So again, I really don't know much about this series. There really isn't a lot out there in terms of English. I did have to rely on Google. If you are familiar with it, if you're reading it either fan translation or reading it in the native language, then feel free to let me know in the comments just a little bit more about this series, and I can, add it to my notes for, well, probably inevitably when Volume 4 ends up on the list next time. At number 2, with 25,848 copies sold, Volume 10 of Sword Oratoria. I'm not even going to bother with the whole Dungeon ni Deo wo Moto Meru. Yeah, I can't even. Is it wrong to try to pick up girls in a dungeon? On the side, Sword Oratoria. Of course, this being the spin-off series of Danmachi, focusing mostly on Ais Wallenstein, the main sort of love interest from the Danmachi series, and focusing on Loki Familia. This one, I've read the first 2 volumes of it. I really like Danmachi. It's, again, another one of my favorite series. I kind of only didn't keep up with this one just because, well, to be honest, just because I thought since it was a side story, I could afford to keep up with other series. But I read the 2nd volume, and I have to admit I liked it enough that I'll probably pick up the 3rd one at the very least. So obviously this one is released in English. That is being released by Yen On, who of course also releases the main Danmachi series. Volume 6 for this one is coming out in June. So, really, it's not that bad. We're only 4 volumes behind at this point. There was a 12-episode anime which aired April to July in 2017. So, if you want to get yourself some side stories, I think the main thing that I like about this series so far, again, it's just the first 2 volumes that I've read, but what I like about it is that it deals a lot more with the dungeon and the deeper levels of the dungeon, just because, of course, in the main series, Belle's party isn't strong enough to get anywhere near to the points where Loki Familia does. So, it's kind of interesting to see that aspect, because really, the dungeon, as much as it's in the title, I would say the dungeon hasn't played that huge a role in the main Danmachi series. So it's kind of cool to have a series that sort of deals a little bit more with the deep dungeon dives and what kind of weird monsters and things they find. Finally at number 1 with 33,698 copies sold. I know you're all very surprised. Volume number 6 of Sword Art Online Progressive. This one, of course, the retelling of the Aincrad storyline from the Sword Art series. Written again, it is written by Reki Kawahara. This one we do have licensed in English. Actually, it was just I just saw Cho from EnglishLightNovels.com just posted that Volume 5 is coming out in December. So, yes, we are a little bit behind. Unfortunately, that's just kind of how the publishing business in English works in terms of having to translate the book, having to then leave enough lead time that you can market it and sell it and get buyers to pick it up from the different book companies and stuff like that. So it's a lot longer process, it seems, in English than it is in Japan. Japan, it seems to be a much more direct sort of relationship, which seems to why they're able to get books out faster. I don't know. Again, I'm not overly familiar with the process in Japan, but I do know in English, even when a title's picked up, it usually takes at least 8-9 months for that title to finally get released, just because of all that sort of marketing aspect and selling, buying, and, you know, aligning sort of your print and everything else. So, but yes, we are getting volume number 5, and depending on how Kawahara goes, we'll either get volume 6 not too long after, probably about 5 months later, and we'll see what happens then, because he had previously been putting these books out at basically like one a year, one every year and a half. Like, he wasn't putting them out that often, but this one, 5 and 6, were within a couple months of each other, so it'll be interesting to see if he's upping the pace or if it was just this specific one, because as I understand it, 5 and 6 are kind of like a 2-part story, so only time will tell. This week, I'd like to say a special thanks to Taylor M. Treese, Patrick Mbaihi, David Miller, FixLab.com, and Lights Leo for their support on Patreon, as well as all the other supporters on Patreon. If you're sort of paying attention, you saw that on Thursday I posted the second episode of the Light Novel podcast. That one, we are tearing apart the first 2 arcs, funny enough, of Sword Art Online, so Aincrad and Fairy Dance, as they exist in the original series, although we did give a couple of shout-outs to Progressive as well. It's kind of hard not to, especially since the anime used some of the material from Progressive Volume 1 in its adaptation. So, thank you all so much that this is happening. It's been a lot of fun so far. All the guys, myself and all the guys involved in it, are having a good time with it, and we are really happy and looking forward to providing even more episodes, and we've been just thrilled to see all sorts of positive feedback and everybody being really, really supportive about it. So thank you all so very much, and especially to my patrons who have, you know, through their contributions, allowed me to buy the hosting space and everything else to make this happen on a regular basis. As you're watching this video, I'm actually at an anime convention in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, called Anime North. If you're watching this in your hotel room, hey, hi, I'm wandering around the convention. Come find me. You can even follow my Twitter stream and at Justus R. Stone, and I'm tweeting out where I'm going to be in terms of some panels that I'm going to be doing. Hopefully, as I'm recording this, I'm going to be leaving in a couple hours, and then tonight I'm actually doing a solo presentation on light novels. It's going to be the first time I've ever done this live. Fingers crossed. I'll let you all know how it goes. Fingers crossed it goes well. So if you're brand new to the channel and you love light novels, you should subscribe. I do not only this countdown on a weekly basis, but every week I review 2 to 3 light novels as well. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.